The Alpha Legion turned traitor at Istvaan. Everyone knows this. They sided with Horus. They slaughtered loyalists. They are painted on the model boxes in the colors of treachery. Except the Alpha Legion has never done a single thing in their entire history that makes sense if they are simply traitors. They have sabotaged chaos as often as they've served it. They have killed demons, protected loyalist worlds, and worked over and over toward outcomes that weaken the Ruinous Powers. When captured Alpha Legionnaires are asked why, they say the same impossible thing: that they are still loyal, that everything, the treachery, the heresy, all of it, serves the Emperor. And the rest of the Imperium hears that and laughs. But what if they aren't lying? What if the Alpha Legion is telling the exact truth, and the only reason it sounds insane is that they are loyal to an emperor the rest of us were never told existed? There are two Alpharius twins. There is a being called the Cabal, and there is a question hiding under 10,000 years of war. Which emperor is the Alpha Legion actually serving? Hold on to that question, because everything that follows is built to answer it, and the answer is not the one the Imperium has written down. The official record is simple. The Alpha Legion is the 20th Legion, one of the 9 traitor legions, classified that way in Codex Chaos Space Marines, sold to you in the Heretic Astartes range, with a painting guide and a rule set. On paper, they are settled. On paper, the question is closed. But the official record and the actual fiction have never agreed about this legion, and Games Workshop knows it. When Warhammer Community ran their own feature on the 20th, the headline they chose was not a statement, it was a question. The Alpha Legion are on your side, or are they? That is the company that owns the lore, openly admitting it has built a legion whose allegiance cannot be resolved.
So we are not going to pretend it can be. We're not re-arguing whether the Alpha Legion is loyal. The audience asked the harder thing, and we're going to take it seriously. Loyal to whom? Loyal to which emperor? Start with the contradiction, because the contradiction is the whole case. Look at what this legion actually does when you stop reading the label and start reading the actions. At Istvaan 5, at the event the Imperium remembers as the Drop Site Massacre, 8 legions were dispatched to crush Horus, the whole effort placed under the command of Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands. The plan was to attack in 2 waves. The first wave went down to the surface, the Iron Hands, the Salamanders, the Raven Guard, 3 legions of loyal sons driving hard into the enemy, certain that 4 more legions were landing behind them to seal the victory. The second wave arrived about 3 hours later. The Night Lords, the Iron Warriors, the Word Bearers, and the Alpha Legion. 4 legions the loyalists believed were reinforcements. 4 legions that had already, in secret, sworn themselves to the War Master. And the second wave turned its guns on the first. The reinforcements landed into the established drop zone and opened fire on the men they had come to save. Alpha Legion First Captain Ingo Petch met with the Iron Warriors to coordinate the trap, ordered the supporting orbital bombardment to fall silent at the moment the Loyalists most needed it, and activated embedded operatives who began sabotaging Loyalist vessels across the fleet. The first wave was caught between the enemy in front and their own brothers behind, and there was no way out of it. More than 9/10 of the Loyalist force on that surface never came home. That is the founding image of Alpha Legion treachery. That is the thing painted on the model box. Hold it in one hand. Now hold this in the other. In the 10,000 years since, this same legion has fielded cells that protect imperial worlds. Cells that hunt and unmake daemons. Cells that infiltrate chaos cults not to lead them but to gut them. And the way the modern legion operates makes the contradiction sharper, not softer.
In the 41st millennium, the Alpha Legion is not an army you can point to on a map. It is a decentralized web of cells and sleeper agents spread across the entire galaxy, so deeply embedded that the Imperium frequently cannot tell an Alpha Legion operation from an ordinary insurrection, a cult uprising, even a natural disaster. They place agents inside the Administratum, inside the Ecclesiarchy, inside the Inquisition itself. And some of those cells, while ostensibly enemies of the Imperium, spend their hidden effort defending Imperial assets.
There are war bands within the 20th. The Imperium's own records name the Penitent Sons, name the Unsung, who behave like loyalists so consistently that the rest of the Legion regards them as irredeemably deluded, but useful, fools. There are Alpha Legionnaires who describe themselves in their own words as the Emperor's Test. Warriors who damn themselves to work inside traitor cells precisely so they can purge the weak parts of the Imperium and confront the heretical threats the Imperium is too blind to see. Put those two hands together, and the label cracks. A traitor sabotages the loyalists at Istvaan. A traitor does not then spend 10 millennia quietly doing the loyalists' work, planting agents to protect the very Imperium it supposedly betrayed. Something here does not fit, and the word that fails to explain it is the word everyone uses: traitor. So if not traitor, then what? One allegiance has to resolve every contradiction at once, and that is what we are hunting.
Here's where the canon stops being a story about a battle and starts being a story about a calculation. To find the allegiance, you have to go back before Istvaan to a planet called Nurth, roughly 2 years before the heresy broke, and to the novel where all of this begins, Legion, by Dan Abnett, the 7th book in the Horus heresy series, published in 2008. That book did something no Warhammer novel had done before it. It revealed the true nature of chaos for the first time in the series, and it did it through the Alpha Legion, because on Nurth, the twin Primarchs are approached by an agent named John Grammaticus, and Grammaticus speaks for something older and stranger than anything in the Imperium. He speaks for the Cabal. The Cabal is not a chaos cult. That is the first thing to understand and the thing most people get backwards.
The Cabal is an ancient alliance of Xenos, led by the Eldar, joined by other species, that has spent millions of years watching chaos rise and looking for the one path that ends it. They practice a form of divination the book calls the Acuity, a kind of Eldar far-seeing pushed to its furthest edge, and through the Acuity they claim to have seen the future of the galaxy narrowed down to 2 roads. Road 1. Horus wins. The Imperium falls into a galaxy-spanning civil war, and the fragment of nobility left in Horus's soul drives him, out of guilt, to destroy his own species. Humanity is extinguished within 2 or 3 generations. And here is the part that matters. Because the Chaos Gods are sustained by the dark psychic emanations of humanity, when humanity dies, chaos starves and dies with it. Road 2. The Emperor wins. He survives, but broken, sealed away, and the Imperium he leaves behind curdles into a decaying theocracy that bleeds fear and hatred and despair into the warp forever. On Road 2, chaos is fed for all eternity. It never ends. It cannot end. Sit with what the Cabal is actually proposing, because this is the hinge of everything. They are telling the twin Primarchs that the only way to destroy chaos, permanently, completely, forever, is to let the Imperium fall, to let Horus win, to engineer the extinction of mankind as the price of unmaking the dark gods. And it is worth being precise about the mechanism, because the prophecy is not vague hand-waving about doom.
The Cabal's seers laid out the chain link by link. Horus, victorious, would be left holding a galaxy he had broken and a father he had destroyed, and the small surviving fragment of nobility in him would turn that guilt inward until he set about ending his own species.
2 generations, perhaps 3, and humanity would be gone. And because the dark gods are not freestanding deities but parasites, entities whose very existence is invested in the dark psychic emanations of the human race, the death of the host is the death of the parasite. No more fear, no more hatred, no more despair pouring into the warp. The gods would gorge themselves on the last war and then collapse, with nothing left to feed on. That is the road. That is what extirpation means when the Cabal says it. And the Alpha Legion says yes. That is why they were at Istvaan. That is why they turned their guns on the first wave. Not because they loved Horus, not because they knelt to chaos, because a Xenos think tank handed them a prophecy that said treachery was the only road that ends the thing the Emperor built them to fight. And right there, in that one decision, you can already see the first candidate answer to the question. The Alpha Legion is not loyal to a person at all. They are loyal to an outcome, the end of chaos. They serve a result so far down the line that it looks, from the battlefield, exactly like betrayal, and would look exactly like betrayal even if it were the most loyal act in the galaxy's history. But the Codex is silent on this point, and the data isn't. Because if the Alpha Legion were a normal legion that simply made a strange, strategic choice, you could stop here. They aren't normal. The structure of the Legion itself is the second piece of the puzzle, and it is so strange that it tells you the secrecy is not a tactic. The secrecy is the point, because there are not one but 2 Primarchs at the head of the 20th Legion, and almost no one was ever supposed to know. Their names are Alpharius and Omegon. They are twins, the only Primarchs ever duplicated, the only 2 of the Emperor's 20 sons who came in a matched pair. 20 sons, and the record only ever willingly gives you 18 names. And of the 18, exactly 1 slot turns out to be holding 2 beings instead of 1. The Legion at the very end of the count is also the Legion that hides a second face. That placement is not nothing. And from the very beginning, the second twin was hidden. To the galaxy, to the other Primarchs, to the Imperium itself, there was only one figure, Alpharius, the public Primarch, the one who attended the war councils and stood in the line of his brothers. Omegon was the shadow, the second face, the one who ran the operations that the record was never meant to show. The 2 of them were physically smaller than the other Primarchs, small enough to pass as ordinary space marines, small enough to stand unnoticed inside their own ranks. And the Legion built its entire culture around that doubling. Ask any Alpha Legionnaire his name, and the answer comes back the same every time. I am Alpharius. Every warrior claims to be the Primarch. A line trooper, a sergeant, a captain. Ask, and each one gives you the same 3 words. The identity is a weapon. It means the Imperium can capture an Alpha Legionnaire and learn nothing, because the prisoner is, by his own account, the Primarch himself. And so is the next one, and the one after that. The truth is a hall of mirrors with no center, and the Legion made it that way on purpose, because a hall of mirrors with no center cannot be interrogated. You cannot break a name out of a man when every man has the same name. Now ask yourself, what kind of Legion does that? Here's where it gets stranger. A Legion built on duplicated identity, on body doubles, on a Primarch who exists as a question rather than a man. That is not a Legion designed to win battles more efficiently. The Imperial fists win battles. The White Scars win battles. You do not need a secret second Primarch to take a fortress. What you need a secret second Primarch for is to hide an allegiance. The doubling, the misdirection, the I am Alpharius. None of it is about the war you can see. All of it is a security system, and a security system protects one thing: the answer to a question someone is not supposed to ask. The Alpha Legion is structurally engineered to make it impossible to know who or what it truly answers to. The secrecy isn't covering a tactic. The secrecy is covering the allegiance. And a legion that goes to that much trouble to hide who it serves is a legion that serves someone worth hiding. And the two twins do not even agree with each other. That is the part that breaks the simple reading clean in half.
In the novella The Serpent Beneath, written by Rob Sanders, collected in the anthology The Primarchs in 2012, Omegon assembles an elite strike team for the most dangerous mission the Legion has ever attempted: to infiltrate a covert Alpha Legion installation called Tenebrae, hunting a security leak. That is the surface story, but the twist underneath is the whole reason the novella matters. Omegon may have fabricated the leak. He may have invented the breach as a pretext to destroy the station, to undo work his own brother Alpharius had set in motion against the loyalists, and to do it without Alpharius ever knowing. Read it that way, and Omegon is not Alpharius's second-in-command at all. He is a secret loyalist, running a quiet campaign of sabotage against his own twin. Which means the question we started with gets worse, not better. We assume the Alpha Legion had one hidden allegiance. The Serpent Beneath suggests it might have two, pointed in opposite directions, hidden even from each other. Whichever emperor the Legion serves, the twins might not be serving the same one. So we have a legion that betrays the loyalists for a prophecy about ending chaos, built on a doubled identity engineered to hide its true master, led by two brothers who may be working against each other in secret. And into that hall of mirrors the audience threw a name, because one viewer, watching this exact thread, asked the question that pulls everything tight. What if Cypher is the original Alpharius, told to release the subject? And we have to handle that carefully because it is the most seductive idea in the whole puzzle, and it is not canon. Here is what is real. Cypher is one of the most enduring mysteries in all of Warhammer, a hooded figure, a fallen angel out of the Dark Angels' buried history, whose true name no one knows. The Dark Angels have hunted him for 1,000 years and never taken him. And the accounts that might explain who he is are sealed in the deepest dungeons of their fortress, known only to the inner circle. He moves through the galaxy, seemingly at random, fighting at times beside Imperial forces, and at times beside chaos, betraying nearly every ally he takes after a time. But the rumor that follows him is always the same, that he is slowly, deliberately making his way toward Terra, toward the throne room. He is said to be seeking the reforged Lion Sword, the blade of the Dark Angel's own Primarch, Lion L. Johnson, lost since the destruction of their home world, to carry it to the Emperor and lay it down for absolution. And the lore says, in as many words, that Cypher follows some vast plan that no other can guess, save perhaps the Emperor himself. That is canon. That is documented. What is not canon is that Cypher is Alpharius.
That link is a fan theory, a bridge a viewer built between two separate mysteries, and a beautiful one, but a bridge with no source under it. The same is true of the phrase the comment used, told to release the subject. There is no canonical thing called the subject tied to the Alpha Legion, no documented mission to release anyone, no thread the official record draws between Cypher's march on Terra and a hidden Primarch waiting to be set loose. So we are not going to tell you Cypher is Alpharius,
because the records do not. But notice why the theory is so hard to put down, and this is the honest version of the idea. You have one figure who hides his identity so completely that the Imperium has hunted him for 10,000 years and still cannot name him. And you have a legion that hides its identity so completely that it built a second Primarch to do it.
Two of the most secretive entities in the entire setting, both moving by a plan no one can read. Both possibly working toward the Emperor by a road that looks like treachery. The viewer did not confirm anything. The viewer noticed that the two mysteries rhyme. And the rhyme is the point, because it sets up the real question, the one the 450-like comment actually asked. Which Emperor? Lay the candidates on the table, because the audience demanded them and they deserve to be named one at a time. Candidate 1. The living Emperor's secret will. The idea that the Emperor, before the heresy, before the throne, set in motion an intention so far-sighted that no one else was permitted to know it, and that the Alpha Legion is the instrument left behind to carry it out, even at the cost of looking like traitors forever. The trouble with Candidate 1 is that nothing in the record shows the Emperor handing the twins a hidden order.
What the record shows is the Cabal handing them a prophecy. The Emperor's secret will is the most satisfying answer and the one with the least evidence under it. Candidate 2. The Emperor's true plan, relayed not by the Emperor but by an intermediary, by Malcador the Sigillite, by the Cabal, by some keeper of the design the Emperor never spoke aloud. This one has more to stand on, because the Alpha Legion demonstrably did take direction from an outside source. They took it from the Cabal. The whole turn at Istvaan runs on the acuity. So if there is an Emperor's true plan being served, it is being served at second hand, through a Xenos prophecy, which means the Legion may be serving the Emperor's intent without serving the Emperor, and without the Emperor ever having authored the order they're following. Loyalty to a plan whose author is uncertain. Candidate 3. A future Emperor. A hidden one.
Not the man on the throne, and not the dark thing Horus served, but a third figure, an heir, a successor, a being the Legion is working across 10,000 years to enable. This is the candidate the lost Primarch thread keeps gesturing at, the one the released subject theory leans on, and it is the candidate with the least ground of all. There is no documented future Emperor the Alpha Legion is building toward. There is no canonical subject waiting in a vault for the 20th Legion to set free. It is the most thrilling answer and the most unsupported, and the honest thing is to name it as a possibility and refuse to pretend it is more than that. So weigh them, honestly. Candidate 1 is satisfying and unproven. Candidate 3 is thrilling and unproven. Candidate 2 is the only one the text actually supports, the Legion serving a design relayed through the Cabal, and even Candidate 2 cannot tell you whose design it ultimately is. Notice what every candidate shares. In all three, the Alpha Legion is serving an Emperor the Imperium has no file on, a secret will, a relayed plan, a future heir. None of them is the living God on the throne as the Imperium understands him, and none of them is chaos. Every door in the corridor opens onto the same kind of room. The strongest answer the evidence allows is not a name. It is a shape. The Legion is loyal to a plan to end chaos, received from outside, whose ultimate author it may not itself know, and possibly an author the Legion is protecting precisely by never letting the rest of us learn the name. And this is where the record contradicts itself, because that answer rests entirely on the Cabal being right, and the canon is not at all sure that it is. This is the counter we owe you, the honest other side of the whole case.
Because there is a real possibility the Alpha Legion is not serving a hidden emperor at all. That there is no secret master, no buried will, no future heir. That they are simply following a piece of Xenos arithmetic. Let Horus win. Let mankind end. Let chaos starve. And dressing the cold math in the language of loyalty because they cannot bear to call it what it is. On that reading, when the captured legionnaire says he is still loyal, he is not lying, and he is not hiding a secret emperor. He means he is loyal to the outcome, the death of the dark gods. And that is a loyalty to a result, not a person, which is exactly what it looks like when you stop wanting it to be a mystery. And the canon goes further than that. It openly doubts the Cabal. Because Eldrad Ulthran, the greatest farseer the Eldar ever produced, looked at the same future and saw a third road the Cabal had missed entirely. An alliance between the Imperium and the Eldar that could stand against chaos without anyone having to die for the math. And Eldrad came to believe something damning.
He came to believe that the Cabal had itself become a pawn of chaos, that the very think tank claiming to have found the one road that ends the dark gods had been turned into an instrument that serves them. The Cabal, he concluded, regarded the destruction of the Eldar themselves as an acceptable loss. Now follow that all the way down. If the Cabal is wrong, if the acuity is compromised, if the prophecy is a thing chaos planted to look like its own undoing, then the Alpha Legion's entire sacrifice is built on a lie. Every loyalist who fell at Istvaan fell for nothing. And the proof that the twins themselves did not fully trust the Cabal is written into the end of the very book that introduced them. At the close of Legion, Alpharius and Omegon dupe Grammaticus and ambush the Cabal's own leadership. They do not kneel to the prophets. They put the prophets at gunpoint. That is not the behavior of a legion that has surrendered to a plan. That is the behavior of a legion keeping its own counsel, which loops us straight back to where we started, not knowing whose counsel that is. There is one more place the canon turns the screw, and it is the cruelest detail of all, because it suggests the twins did not even trust their own conclusion. Remember how Legion ends? The twins ambush the Cabal rather than kneel to it. But there is also a documented moment after Alpharius falls at Pluto, where the surviving twin Omegon is said to silently present the War Master with the data, handing over the intelligence the Legion had gathered, as far as anyone can tell, without a word. Think about what that silence holds. A Primarch who has just registered the death of his own brother, who has spent his existence as the hidden half of a hidden legion, delivering the fruit of all that secrecy and saying nothing about why. That is the Alpha Legion in a single image. They give you the data. They never give you the reason.
And the reason is the only thing that would answer our question. So why does the Imperium not just settle this? Why, after 10,000 years, is the question still open? And the answer is that the Imperium cannot afford the answer. Think about what is at stake if the Alpha Legion is right. If treachery really was the only way to serve the Emperor's actual intent, if the drop site massacre was not a betrayal but an operation, the most loyal thing anyone did that day, then the entire moral architecture of the heresy collapses. The story the Imperium tells itself, the story that there were loyal sons and traitor sons, and a clean line between them, would be a misunderstanding 10,000 years deep. The Inquisition would have spent 10 millennia hunting and unmaking the only sons still doing their father's real work. Every monument to the loyal dead, every condemnation of the traitor Primarchs, every certainty the Imperium is built on, all of it would be standing on a mistake.
An institution cannot survive learning that its founding tragedy was a clerical error. So the answer stays buried. Not because no one knows it, because the Imperium is the one thing in the galaxy that most needs the answer to stay a question. The ambiguity is not an accident of the lore. It is the load-bearing wall. And the channel has been telling you across this whole series that the Imperium buries the things it cannot survive knowing. The erased Primarchs, the truth about the throne, the names struck from the record. The Alpha Legion is the same machinery pointed at the same wall. The difference is that the Legion is not a thing the Imperium erased. It is a thing the Imperium cannot stop misreading, on purpose, because the correct reading would cost it everything. Which brings us to the only frame that holds all of it. The galaxy insists there were two sides to the Horus heresy: loyalist and traitor.
The sons who stood by the Emperor and the sons who betrayed him. Two colors, and you are meant to pick one. The Alpha Legion has spent 10,000 years proving the galaxy is wrong about the number. They wear the traitor's mark and fight the traitor's enemies. They serve chaos and sabotage it in the same breath. They took a prophecy from a Xenos Cabal they did not even trust, betrayed an army of loyalists for it, and then spent 10 millennia behaving like the most loyal sons of all. And when you ask them why, they tell you the truth, and the truth sounds insane, because we only ever learned about two emperors. There was always a third side, and the question was never whether the Alpha Legion was loyal. The only question that was ever worth asking, is which emperor they were loyal to all along. We cannot answer it. That is not a failure of the research. That is the design.
Games Workshop built a legion whose allegiance is a door that does not open. And every reading you have heard tonight is a key that fits the lock and will not turn. The outcome, the relayed plan, the secret will, the future heir, the cold math with no emperor at all. Each one explains almost everything. None of them explains the last thing. And the Legion likes it that way. The Legion built itself that way. A Primarch who is two men, a name that is every man, an allegiance that is a hall of mirrors with the light switched off. For 10,000 years, the galaxy has told the story of the Horus heresy in two colors: loyalist and traitor. The sons who stood by the Emperor and the sons who betrayed him. And for 10,000 years, the Alpha Legion has been quietly proving that the story is missing a color. They wear the traitor's mark and fight the traitor's enemies. They serve chaos and sabotage it in the same breath. They tell their captors they were loyal all along, and we laugh, because we only know about two emperors to be loyal to: the living God on the throne and the dark thing Horus served. But the Alpha Legion never answered to either. So before you call them traitors again, answer their question first. Which emperor were they serving? Because they always knew. We're the ones who were never told.